Most men think they will see obvious signs first that their wife is starting to check out of their marriage, and then they will be able to quickly remedy those signs. But what if that is completely backwards? What if the big dramatic sign never shows up and you're left in the panic of divorce suddenly being an imminent possibility? Some of the biggest warning signs actually feel like good news in the moment. So today, I want to walk you through 3 signs that most men don't see so I can help you stop measuring your relationship by the wrong things. Because as Wayne Dyer famously quoted, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, and that can make all the difference in turning your relationship around. The first sign that most men miss is that the calm they get from her suddenly gets mistaken for peace. A big part of being the masculine leader in a relationship is being able to have that grounded and even-keeled presence. You are not swayed by her emotional ups and downs. They don't bother you because for the most part, unless they're really incredibly drastic swings, this is normal and just another day of being in a relationship with feminine energy. So what really catches men off guard is when you may have had a pretty rocky run in a relationship for a time period, and all of a sudden there is this calm that starts to happen with her. To give you a better picture, let's say for the last 2 months you've been arguing a lot. Pretty much every conversation kind of ends the same way, where she starts to get frustrated and emotional, and you get defensive and have your own frustrations. You're both in separate rooms of the house, basically stewing in frustration afterwards, and you don't feel heard, both of you, at all. It's like a rinse and repeat for a bunch of months. Then something changes. The arguments almost disappear. She isn't criticizing you as nearly as much, and everything kind of feels pretty peaceful. For the first time in a long time, you have that little bit of relief feeling. I know I have experienced it where it almost felt like, yes, she has finally understood what I've been arguing about this whole time, and she is calming down. Maybe she's accepting my side of things. Unfortunately, this is a false sense of security. It's almost like the TSA lines at the airport where you go through and it feels like some of the agents really don't care about what they're doing and they're kind of doing a half job of scanning people on the way in. It's the illusion of security. And in your relationship, same thing. The sudden disappearance of conflict doesn't mean everything in your relationship is on the up and up and it's healing. A lot of the time, it just means that she stopped believing the conflict will accomplish anything. People often argue because they still care about changing something. I get that there are also some people who just thrive in conflict and will look for a fight no matter what, but generally they argue because they want to feel heard and inflict some level of change. They want a different outcome, and they are hoping that if they put energy into conveying their side of things, it might improve or move the needle, even if they're expressing it poorly, which is obviously often what adds fuel to conversations to turn them into arguments. So with your wife, if she feels unheard long enough and every time she shares how she is feeling, it is met with a wall of reaction or misunderstanding, she eventually gets emotionally drained. She's going to stop repeating herself. Everything isn't fixed. The problems haven't disappeared, but her hope has disappeared. And herein lies the feeling of FP, faux peace. When guys tell me what's been going on in their relationship and say it's been kind of rocky for a while, but things have actually been pretty peaceful lately, my first question is almost always, peaceful for who? From their side, it feels better because there is at least less tension and less fighting. So he kind of feels like, okay, I'm getting that peace. Meanwhile, her perspective of things is most likely that she simply started conserving emotional energy and she's no longer spending that emotional capital trying to convince you. Now, if your relationship is doing well and calm, that is pretty standard. The sign is specifically for after a period of conflict and higher tension, and then all of a sudden things seem peaceful when you know deep down nothing was really solved. If you're measuring the amount of conflict happening to determine if things are getting better or not, you're measuring the wrong thing. And that is why this sign gets completely missed by men. The better question, instead of trying to measure if the conflict is subsiding, is to audit if you think the emotional connection has actually become deeper. If the conflict has subsided, but the emotional connection still feels very cold or non-existent, that is a major red flag. She has basically decided to quietly stop bringing those problems forward. And if you assume time is fixing what time alone has never fixed, you will end up oblivious to her slowly learning how to live without depending on the relationship emotionally. And that can be a precursor to the next sign that happens during ordinary moments in your relationship, so it can be very easy to miss. Sign number 2 is that she stops leaning on you. And this is easy to miss because we have this misinterpretation that we believe a woman's emotional disconnection is going to be dramatic, like movie and TV scene dramatic, where she wakes up and decides in a panic and drama-filled way that she doesn't need you anymore and straight up tells you and causes this scene. That's not reality though. It actually happens gradually, almost invisibly. And because it happens so slowly, it makes it very easy for you to adapt right along with it. Think back to when your relationship was at its healthiest. Maybe it was years ago, a few months ago, before you had kids, whenever it was. When something happened during her day, good or bad, who did she naturally want to tell? If something stressful happened at work or something funny happened, she'd most likely want to share it first with you. If she had a difficult conversation with a family member, she'd probably want to talk it through with you. Not because you had all the answers, but because you were the person she naturally thought she could lean towards. Now compare that to what often happens before she emotionally checks out. She still has difficult days and can get overwhelmed. Life suddenly doesn't just magically become easier, but you slowly stop being the person she naturally turns toward. She starts to process things elsewhere. Friends, family, trusted coworker, or she just simply keeps it to herself. Either way, it's somewhere else other than with you. It's easy to think that maybe she isn't trying to burden you anymore, and that can be true as well, but it also doesn't help your case. All in all, the sign tells you that she's learned not to expect any emotional support from you and the relationship anymore. And when she repeatedly doesn't feel emotionally understood, she's generally not going to make that dramatic announcement. So don't just pay attention to whether she's talking to you, pay attention to whether she naturally moves towards you. There is a difference because every relationship has its own nuanced situations, some without kids, some with kids, some separated. So depending on those nuances, you can still have conversations every day about schedules, groceries, or whatever it is administratively. That is communication, yes, but emotional leaning is different. Emotional leaning sounds like, hey, can I run something by you? I'm really frustrated today. Can I tell you something? And despite what every fiber of our being tells us as logical brain men to do, those moments are not about solving her problems. They're about connection. They are invitations into her emotional world. And if those invitations become fewer and fewer, you can't dismiss it because there wasn't an argument. Don't be looking for fireworks as a signal that her emotional connection is disappearing. It disappears one ordinary day at a time. And if those ordinary days happen without any intervention on your end to do what helps change that for her, then you end up with the third sign that reveals something much deeper has changed. And unlike the first two signs, this one isn't about what she says, it's about the role you slowly stop playing in her life. Sign number 3, you slowly become optional. This is where things start to change very slowly for her, one routine at a time, one little adjustment after another, until one day you realize you are no longer naturally included in her emotional world. And to sort of simplify this a bit, healthy relationships don't require permission for every little decision. But think back to a relationship, whether it was one that you had or one you may know of, where there was a genuine emotional partnership. Before making a decision, there was a natural instinct to include each other with a, hey, let's figure this out, or again, I love your opinion. Not necessarily because one person or the other can't decide on their own, but because life felt like something you were building together. Now compare that to what often happens before emotional checkout. She starts making plans, handling problems, and basically imagining the future without necessarily naturally seeing you as part of that picture. Think about if she's bringing in a bunch of heavy grocery bags for years in from the car. At first, she'll kind of look around for your help. And a lot of the time, after you're nowhere to be found, she's going to just start carrying them in by herself each and every time. Well, eventually, she's going to get stronger and stronger to the point where it's no problem for her to carry those in and not need you at all. She thinks, hell, I'm just going to do it myself. Emotional adaptation is going to work the same way. She's going to stop expecting partnership and become emotionally self-sufficient, which, when you're speaking about attraction from a woman, you need her emotions engaged. And if they are not engaged, she starts to have emotional independence from the relationship itself. And that's why I believe the third sign is most significant, because the opposite of emotional partnership isn't conflict, it's actually irrelevance. When you become emotionally irrelevant, you're no longer naturally part of the way she navigates life. And that is a much more meaningful signal than whenever she smiled at you, or if she sent you a nice text message, or maybe she seemed to be in a better mood when you talked to her the other day. So let's bring this all together. The 3 signs are not dramatic, but over time, she will naturally stop leaning on you. You slowly become less central to the way she experiences life. Those signs aren't meant to make you hopeless, but they do need to be recognized, because when they start to happen without you knowing what they mean, it will be easy for you to become complacent, since things just kind of feel very flat, but they don't feel like they're going to collapse right away. However, if you ignore the patterns long enough, they will fester to a point where things become very uncertain in your relationship due to the level of emotional disconnection she will eventually get to. I know that sounds a bit catastrophic, but there is an encouraging part. Patterns can change. Not because you force her to feel differently, but because you stop contributing to the patterns that created the distance in the first place. And that is where your focus belongs. Because at the end of the day, you control the controllables. And that is the only part of your relationship that has truly ever been yours to control. So if you're realizing these signs are present, or she has literally told you she has checked out, I invite you to go watch my free Relationship Rebuild Masterclass. It goes through the path I created where if you focus on those things, it will give you a transformation that will completely change the way you feel and allow you to create the emotional safety and leadership presence she needs for a healthy relationship and that attraction to be sparked back. If the masterclass resonates with you, at the end, you will have a chance to apply to work with me in my coaching program where we will take your unique situation and I'll help apply those skills to your own relationship so you can stop guessing and start leading with confidence. Again, the link for the masterclass is in the description below. Also, if today's video helped you recognize some of these signs, the next question becomes, why do so many men accidentally make those signs worse without even realizing it? And that's exactly what I break down in this next video.